Hi friends, welcome to my Cozy Crafty Cabin. My name is Rayanne. Today is day 6 of my 12 Days of Christmas in July Crafty series. And you guys, today I'm going to share with you 6 different notepads or notebooks you can create beautiful covers for, and one where we're just going to actually completely make ourselves using some 4x6 index cards and sheets of paper. I actually throw in a bonus 7th notebook at the end of the video. But I am so beyond excited for this video and to share all these ideas with you. I'm so proud of these ideas, so I hope you really enjoy this video. This video is going to be jam-packed since we have a lot to cover, but I will walk you through the measurements and everything you'll need to make all these different notepads. All of them are super easy, and I'm telling you, you'll be hooked and want to make so many. So first, let me show you all the notepads and materials I'll be using so you can pick some up yourself if you'd like. I purchased most of them from Dollar Tree. There's these mini writing tablets that measure 3.5 by 5 inches. Now I had a little stockpile in my stash of these, so these are old and they came in a pack of 5, but now they sell them in a pack of 3, and I believe they have 50 sheets instead of 35 sheets. I also use these scratch pads I purchased from Walmart. They come in a pack of 3. Each pad has 50 unlined sheets that are perforated at the top. I have some 4x6 note cards in this 4x6 notepad that has unlined colored sheets, and I'll show you how to make a super easy 3x4 notepad with these. Then I have a simple but foolproof method of covering these chunky unlined notepads from Dollar Tree. I believe they now sell them for, they're 100 sheets instead of 150. These are also older for my stash. Now, these mini sketchbooks that came in a 4-pack are new from Dollar Tree that I purchased recently. Then I have some line notebooks that came in a 2-pack from Dollar Tree. I'm not sure if Dollar Tree still sells like this particular style or set. It is an older like jot label, but it's not as old as some of my other notepads, and I feel like they're just constantly putting out like all types of notebooks and notepads that you can definitely just alter and make your own. So here are the papers I pulled from my stash that I thought I might want to use for these different notepads. I also have this set of 5x7 cards from Dollar Tree. This Hello Christmas 12x12 collection kit from Cartabella is so beautiful, and their paper is just like such high quality. It's so thick and like has this texture to it. So I absolutely loved using this collection for making all the different notepad covers, so definitely highly recommend Cartabella for these kind of projects. Okay, so for notebook number 1, it's going to be a quick and easy 3x4 notebook we're going to make from 4x6 index cards and a couple of these colored blank sheets of paper that are also 4x6. So I just took 5 index cards and 2 sheets of green paper from this notepad. All you need to do is fold them in half on the 6-inch side. Now I alternate how I fold the index cards, so like some have the blank side on the outside and some have the lined side on the outside. Once your sheets are all folded, then you simply just stack them inside one another at that center fold line. I alternated my sheets so that like when you flip through the notebook, you'll have some pages where both the left and right sheets will be lined, or both the left and right sheets will be unlined. Now, when you have all your paper stacked together, you'll notice that the right edge isn't perfectly lined up. Like some papers stick out a bit more than others, which is just what happens. If that bothers you, you can always clean it up with your scissors, but what I like to do instead is just make our cover be a tad wider than the rest of our sheets, or, you know, as wide as the the whitest one, if you will, so that basically it gets hidden by our front and back cover. So I pulled a paper from this 4.5 by 6.5 paper pad that I had, and all I do is I just line it up with the right edge of my cover, I take the right edge of my cover and I line it up with the right edge of the inside sheets so that it just covers the whitest sheet. And then I gently fold the cover sheet over our spine, and then I press down on that crease with my bone folder. And then I place the inside sheets back inside our cover sheet, and with a pencil I just lightly mark the right edge and top edge of where I need to trim our back cover and along the top of our cover sheet. So I just make a line where the paper is like the widest basically, so that our cover sheet will be as wide as the widest part of our inside papers. I hope I explained that okay. Then I just trim the cover sheet where I made those marks. I like to round all the corners of the cover and the inside sheets. Then I get all of my sheets stacked together nicely again, and you can use a regular stapler. You don't have to use like a long reach stapler for this size notebook. And I make 2 staples, one near the top and one near the bottom, just along that center fold. And I make the staples with like the outside cover facing me so that the flat part of the staple is on the outside cover. And I never really get this part perfect. My staple's always like a little off-centered, but it still works out okay. I think when I make the second one, I actually did 3 staples. I added one to the middle as well. So the last step I like to do is just wrap some twine around our spine. So you just want to open your notebook to the middle where you'll see the other end of your staples, and then I just wrap around that center fold a few times and tie a knot. I think these turned out so cute and just come together so quickly, and they're so easy to make. Okay, so for notepad number 2, I'll be using this unlined chunky notepad from Dollar Tree that has 150 sheets. Now, it says it's 4 by 6 inches, but always measure the notepad before you cut any paper because oftentimes it's like slightly off. In this case, the height was just like a smidge shorter than 6 inches. I still cut my paper as if it were 6 inches tall, and then I just trim off any excess at the end. I find that a bit easier, and then it gives you some room for error and helps make sure that like the whole cover gets covered by your paper. So for this notepad, you just need a piece of paper that measures 4 by 6 and a piece that measures 4 by 7.5, and you'll score that second piece at 6 and 6.5 inches, which will be the part that folds over the top of our notepad. So this notepad in particular was a half an inch spine. So just check whichever notepad you might be using. Check how wide your spine is and just adjust your measurements and score lines accordingly. I use this beautiful sheet from the Hello Christmas collection by Crafty. I'll be using both sides of the paper, which honestly it kind of hurt to glue down this beautiful side of the print with like that had like Mr. and Mrs. Claus and like the trees and deer and all that. But yeah, I just think this pattern is so pretty. So when I make my score lines, you may notice I'm not scoring at 6 and 6.5. I'm scoring at 1 and 1.5 inches, but that's just because my scoreboard is like backwards, at least for me, compared to what I'm used to. So like I've always used scoreboards where you line your paper in like the top left corner of the scoreboard and your numbers increase from left to right. But with this new tool that I'm using, it's like backwards, it's reverse, right? So you line it up in the top right corner and the numbers increase from right to left. So just wanted to mention that in case it seems confusing that like I'm not scoring where I'm writing on my paper. In my mind, when I'm working at like the measurements and all that for a project, I still think of like my score marks using a scoreboard where it works from left to right. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, after you cut and square your paper and fold down on those score lines, you can add adhesive. I like to cover the entire back of the notepad with double-sided tape, and then you'll also need double-sided tape on like those two top pieces of the back cover sheet. So like the parts that will cover the top spine and the part that will fold over and attach to the front cover of the notepad. I like to start with attaching the back cover to the front cover. So first I just get everything lined up nicely in my hands. You want the top edge of your cover sheet lined up with the top of the notepad. And then there's just going to be a tiny bit of overhang at the bottom, which we'll trim off later. And then same for the back cover, you're going to line up your score lines with the top spine. And you should also have just a tiny bit of overhang on the bottom of the back of the notepad. Once I have everything lined up nicely in my hands, I then place the notepad down. I remove that adhesive that I put on like the front flap and spine part of the back cover sheet, and I fold that over, press it down with my bone folder. Then I cover the front of the notepad with adhesive, and then I fold over my cover sheet to attach it, press it down with my bone folder again, and then lastly I remove the backing from the adhesive on the back cover. I fold over the back cover sheet, press it down with my bone folder, and then you just need to trim off that tiny bit of excess overhanging on the front and back covers. And you guys, like, follow these steps and things just like will line up so perfectly. I was so happy with how this turned out, how easy it was, and you know that there was, because like I feel like oftentimes I'll have like a little bit of a smidge like of my cover peeking through, you know, but no, like this method was foolproof for me. So for notepad number 3, I'll be using these mini writing tablets, which measure 3.5 by 5 inches. If you have the set that comes in a 3-pack, you may need to adjust your measurements that I use, as it may be like a tad thicker than the ones that I have, since these are just 35 sheets, and I believe the newer ones they sell currently are 50 sheets. So just double check your measurements. For this notepad, I'm using a standard size envelope that measures 6.5 by 3 5/8 inches. I use this to make a refillable pocket. So once you seal the envelope, just cut it in half on the long side at 3 1/4 inches, and then you'll end up with 2 pockets. These notepads fit perfectly inside since they measure 3.5 inches. Then you'll need a piece of paper that measures 8.5 inches wide by 5 1/8 inches tall to make our like gatefold or wallet style covers. Now, after I made this notepad, I realized I needed to make an adjustment to my score lines so that the notepad fit better. So on the 8.5 inch side, you'll still score at 2 and 2 1/4 inches, but then your next score line should be at 6 and 6 1/4 inches rather than the 5 7/8 and 6 1/8 that I had written down. So when I first came up with these measurements, I think I was basing it off of the width of the notepad, which is 3.5 inches wide, when I should have been basing it off of the width of the envelope pocket, which is slightly bigger at 3 5/8 inches. So basically we just need to increase those last two score lines by 1/8 of an inch, and then you should be good. So now I gently fold down on my score lines, and the notepad will be placed inside in the middle. The envelope will get glued down to the cover rather than the notebook, so it makes it like refillable and reusable. Now this is optional, but you could just totally glue the envelope as is to the cover, but I decided to cover the white envelope with a piece of pattern paper. So I just used one of the scraps from when I cut the cover. You just need a piece that measures 4 1/4 by 3 1/4 inches. This is slightly wider than the envelope pocket, so I simply just lay it on top of the envelope, center it as best I can, gently fold over the pattern paper along the left and right edges, and then I add adhesive to the back and I glue it to the envelope pocket. And I like to use my scoreboard's like edge to try to keep everything nice and straight. And then I just add adhesive to the back of the envelope pocket that we now have covered, and I glue it down to the inside of the cover in that middle section. And then I also like to round the corners of my cover. So lastly, I just take a 3x4 cut apart from the collection, I round the corners, and I attach it to the front cover. I like to use foam tape, and I put it on like the left side, which is going to get glued down to that left panel of the cover. And then I add a Velcro dot to the right side that attaches to that right cover panel. And this is actually so sturdy and nice because it's that Cartabella paper. It's just such nice quality. I really liked using it for these notepad projects. Here I'm showing you how the notepad went over my score lines and to just adjust those last two score lines to fix that issue. Okay, for notepad number 4, I'll be using these Unlined mini sketchbooks that measure 4 by 6 inches. I had noticed that when you open these mini sketchbooks and like fold back the covers, it can stand up horizontally. So like with the opening on the bottom and the spine on the top. I hope I explained that okay. Anyways, I thought it would be so cute to turn these into like a little display style notepad for your desk. So for these, all you need is a piece of paper that measures 6 by 11 inches. I had a scrap that was large enough from the previous notebook, so I just used that piece and I cut it to size. Then all you need to do is score it at 2 3/4 inches on the 11-inch side. And now I like to line up what will be like the bottom edge where the notebook opens up because it will be a top folding style notebook. And then I gently fold my paper over the spine of the notebook. Now the score line we made, that should line up with the other bottom edge of the back of the notebook. And you just you could just trim off that piece that's left over, but I decided to just fold it over and glue it to the inside of my back cover. And then I cover the front and back covers of with double-sided tape and attach my paper. So I like to start with the front cover and then glue down the back cover, and then lastly glue down that last piece to the inside of the back cover. I also like to gently kind of like bend the cover where like the actual cover of the sketchbook is scored and bends when you open it. It just kind of like gently working at that so that the paper isn't like too stiff and doesn't accidentally crack. And then it also just like helps with the notepad being able to stand up horizontally. Lastly, I used a 4x4 cut apart from the collection and glued it to the front cover, and then I just kind of gently worked at that crease again on the front cover where it folds when you open the notepad. And yeah, I think these are just so cute and make such a cute little display piece for your desk. Okay, for notepad number 5, I'm using these scratch pads from Walmart that measure 4 by 6 inches, but double check your measurements, of course. For these, really all that matters is the top piece that's holding like the scratch pad together. That's all I'm going to be covering with pattern paper. And then I'll be gluing magnets to the back to turn this into a magnetic scratch pad where you can like jot some quick notes, lists, reminders, whatnot, and then you can tear the paper off since it has that perforated edge. So you can totally purchase like magnetic sticker sheets. That's basically what these are that I'm using. They're extremely thin, like these are not heavy duty whatsoever. That is why I cover the entire back of the notepad to make sure it can like actually hold the notepad. But you guys, these were free, what I'm using. You might get like free magnets like in the mail, like as like a promotional thing, or maybe if you go to like an event. It's basically like a business card size. They're 2 by 3 inches. But yeah, I just simply pulled off like the paper that was attached to the magnet. It took really no effort at all. And then I added adhesive and I glued them to the back of the scratch pad. So keep an eye out, like in your junk mail, you might have some free magnets in there that you can use for projects. So that's my little tip. Now, as for paper, all you'll need is a piece of pattern paper that measures 4 inches wide by 2 inches tall to cover that top piece. And you're going to fold it over the top spine. I just used a scrap that was left over from a previous notepad. I don't use my scoreboard for this. I just line it up and gently fold over with my hands. Then I add adhesive to the scratch pad and I glue it down. I covered the back of the scratch pad with adhesive and then I glue down the magnets as well. So these were perfect size too, like 4 of the magnets covered the scratch pad entirely and there was just a tiny bit of overhang on the bottom to trim off. So as a little bonus, I decided to cover a 3x4 cut apart from the collection with some of my free magnets in my stash. And I think this just makes such a cute set. Like, I think this would be such a cute little gift for someone, or it'd be great for craft fairs. Like, I just love that the scratch pad and magnet coordinate so well together. Okay, for notepad number 6, I'll be using the smaller of these lined notebooks that came in a 2-pack from Dollar Tree. It's kind of an odd size. It's a little bit wider than 4 inches, and then it's almost 5 3/4 inches tall, and it's about 1/8 inch thick. So for this notebook, I'm simply going to use a Christmas card as the cover. You'll want a larger size Christmas card, so these are 5 by 7 and came in a pack of 12 from Dollar Tree. I think this is a great way though to like upcycle your Christmas cards that you might receive. I also think it would be really fun to try to like thrift some vintage Christmas cards and use them as notebook covers. So the first step is to trim your card so that it is just slightly less than 5 3/4 inches tall, or whatever height your notebook is that if you're using something different. Now, when you do this, you may want to trim off like some from the bottom and some from the top of your card, just depending on like the layout and the picture on the front cover. And next you want to just make one score line, and it's going to be 1/8 of an inch to the right of that center fold of the card. So this is to create the spine. So this notebook in particular is 1/8 inch thick, so we need a 1/8 inch spine. And what I like to do is I just line up that center score line that's already on the card with just any score line on my scoreboard. And then once I know it's lined up straight, I just take my bone folder, I move it 1/8 of an inch to the right of that line and score. Next, I glue the card to the notebook, and then I trim off the excess overhang that's on the front and back. And this gives me some room for error and just helps to ensure that like the entire notebook gets covered. So I first cover the front of the notebook with adhesive. Then on the card, I like to press down on that score line that we made. So that the spine's kind of like flat, if that makes sense. And then with my notebook and card standing up, I slide my notebook to the spine, and then I fold over my cover of the card. And then I press this down with my bone folder. And then once that's glued down, I cover the back of my notebook with adhesive, and I fold over the back of the card to the notebook and press it down with my bone folder. And then all that's left to do is to just trim off our excess that's on the front and back. So as a quick little bonus, I decided to also cover the larger notepad that came in this 2-pack from Dollar Tree, but I don't show you all the steps, just the before and after, but I think it's probably self-explanatory at this point. I just really wanted to use this adorable pattern sheet for my stash. It's by Crate Paper, their Busy Sidewalks collection, and I thought it would be just such a cute notebook cover just on its own, and I love how it turned out. So here are all the 6 notepads plus the bonus one I made. I honestly love like how these all turned out. The paper does all the work, and I just love the clean and simple look. I'm really proud of these ideas, and I'm really happy with how everything turned out. So I really hope you enjoyed this video and got some crafty inspiration. I swear I could just craft with Christmas paper all year long. Like, I just love the patterns. I would love to know which style notepads are your favorites and if you'll be making any, so please feel free to share in the comments. I think my top 2 favorites are like the chunky notepad and the magnetic scratch pad with the coordinating magnet, but I truly love them all. Making all of these really got me wanting to do a craft fair. I haven't done one in several years, but I just don't have the time, unfortunately, like to prep for something like that right now in my life. But maybe when my kids are in school. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching and supporting my channel, and for all the love and kind words you share. It truly makes my day. I love crafting and just like exercising that creative part of my brain. And it's been so fun to get to share ideas here and be part of this little crafty community. I'll have my playlist for this 12 Days of Christmas series linked in my description as always. And next is going to be day 7, which will be filled with 7 new ideas. So until then, stay cozy and I'll see you soon. Bye.